Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I am your host, Adam. Who are you? Oh, it's Dave.
I'm the new guy.
Yes, the new improve. And it's not really anybody new. It is our Dynamite guru, Dave Robinson. He's had a haircut. He was jealous. See, what happened was when we spoke about Too Bald a couple of weeks ago, he decided to cut his dreadlocks off. You can't see it because he's wearing a hat and he's got his ears in, but he's
I'll do another go. It will build the suspense.
Yeah, you keep everybody in suspense, and you've got to get your ending right again today. So
yeah, well, mate, it seems like I can't moan to you, can I, about the perils of long hair? And having so much problems with having long hair for 10 years. But I'd been thinking about it for a while, and then when you were recruiting for Too Bald, I thought it's time, man. It's time for a change.
Enough was enough, and it's time for a change, as Owen Hart said. It looks good, though, man. It looks really good. So, well,
people keep saying I've shaved like years off me. I think I look a lot younger.
You do, and that's the thing with when you do cut that hair. And listen, can't really talk about me cutting hair, but you do look more fresher, Dave. A lot more fresher version.
I feel fresh.
Your back's getting back to normal.
My back is like, and I don't want to say 100%, but I had an injection on Tuesday in my spine, which sounds rancid. I appreciate that. But that was to help with the nerve pain that I've had from the slip discs. So that's gone really well. I'm pain-free, relatively pain-free. So, yeah, new man, new back, new haircut.
New hair, and soon to be a daddy again.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, should be ready for...
Is that all okay?
Yeah, all good. All good.
Brilliant.
Growth scan. Everything was fine, so
perfect.
Things are looking good. So I'm positive today, which I think it's going to be needed. I think my positivity is going to be needed because I've seen that some people aren't happy with Dynamite this week.
Well, I'll be the voice of reason to a degree as well. There was only, we'll get straight in, but there was only a little bit of news before Dynamite went on the air this week, and that was that they had surpassed SummerSlam 92 in terms of ticket sales for Wembley Stadium. Now, we will get on to that. There was some negativity, and our illustrious leader, Andy, has been very negative about the fact that he feels that the show's a glorified house show. First things first, Dave. Great news about the tickets. What's your feeling about the glorified house show?
I think that it will be a sellout still. I've said that from the start. I think all the tickets will go. I think there's going to be a few more real top matches announced. In terms of the house show, I don't see it. I mean, I can perhaps understand Punk and Joe not feeling as special because they had a match recently, and if it wasn't for that match, then maybe it would feel like a bigger match. But the way it finished, it did leave more on the table, which Joe alluded to. Which was enough for me to kind of be excited about another match. It was a great match anyway. The other match that's been rumoured is Hook and Jungle Boy again. But again, I'm quite happy with that. I've enjoyed that storyline. I think Jack Perry is improving as a heel. He's improving in terms of his confidence. He's not the finished product, but I'm enjoying his work at the minute. So the house show stuff, I mean, you wouldn't get Sting on a house show.
No.
So that's the other match, isn't it? Sting and Darby Allin against Swerve and AR Fox.
In a coffin match, by the way.
Well, that's, again, I want to see that. I'm excited to see that match. Yeah. So I'm not sure. There's going to be a fatal four-way for the women's title, which...
There is, yes.
We can assume that is going to be Toni Storm, Saraya, Britt Baker, and Shida, which, for me, that's going to be a great match, and I wouldn't be surprised if Saraya ends up winning in the UK. That'll be a great moment. So I don't see where the criticism is, to be honest, but I'm quite open to hear why people feel a different way. I'm open to hearing it, but I just don't understand it.
No, the way that I see it is I was a bit... I think I spoke to on this before. I was a bit disappointed that the matches didn't get announced sooner. I felt that they the chance to capitalise on the ticket sales.
Yeah.
My only listen, I don't matches for me are cool. I always go into every show that I go to open mind. I don't set high expectations. I don't set no expectations.
Yeah,
it's a case of I'll go there and I'll live it for the 3-4 hours that we got. We've also got a 0 hour match that we need to talk about, and we'll get into that with Dynamite. My only concern is that I feel as if they're putting too much on themselves by doing Wembley. Then they've got, then before Wembley, they've obviously got a Dynamite, a Collision, a Rampage, a Wembley, Dynamite, Collision, a Rampage, all out. And I think that may be too much to do. And that's my only, I'm not worried about matches for Wembley, but my only concern is it's too much.
Yeah, but then there's going to be matches on All Out that you'd be thinking, I wish that was on All In, and vice versa. So there's going to be that. So maybe having the back-to-back pay-per-views, I wouldn't fancy it. That's one hell of a challenge as a company to pull that off. They haven't done a show in the UK before, so to be doing Wembley Stadium, it's very ambitious, it's very ballsy, and if they pull it off and it goes out without a hitch, then fair play. But I just don't understand the criticism for the matches. I think every match has been announced. I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I'm happy. We'll get into Dynamite in a minute. And we're getting Aussie Open now defending in the Ring of Honor titles on the buy-in.
Yeah.
Which again, for us, you could argue that Aussie Open should be on the main card, but it's the Ring of Honor titles, and they are relatively new to it, even though they've appeared fairly frequently over the past months. They're not like AEW originals, so there's probably more AEW guys that warrant a spot on the card a little bit more. But to be seeing Aussie Open on the undercard, I mean, that for me is another really exciting match that I can't wait to see. The atmosphere in that stadium is going to be unreal. I would be quite happy to have gone. And yes, I totally get what you say about, let's get some matches, let's see, so we can start talking about it and start getting excited. And we want these storylines to materialize. But if no matches would have been announced and we just turned up to Wembley, I would still be absolutely excited.
I think Billy Ray even said that.
He actually
don't announce it.
He suggested to do that, I think, but obviously we aren't just one-off. There's going to be some fans at Wembley that don't particularly watch the product week in, week out. Yeah. They're just going because it's a huge wrestling show, or there might be somebody on the card they want to see. But the storylines are linking in with it. So the stuff that's happening at All In is consistent with the weekly programming. It's not as if they're just doing a show and it completely doesn't, the outcomes doesn't matter. The outcomes absolutely do matter. You've got MJF versus Adam Cole in the main event, and that's arguably the biggest storyline they've got going, or one of them at the minute. That relationship and who's going to turn. So again, I understand what you're saying about they've bitten off. Maybe they're bitten off more than they can chew. We'll see. But in terms of the matches and the event, it's really coming together nicely for me now and shaping up to be one hell of a night for wrestling fans.
It should well be a hell of a night. I always go into it with an open mind. I don't, as I say, if you set yourself expectations, generally they won't hit them because you either do too high or too low.
Yeah.
And so I always go in flat, open mind. It's their first event over here in the UK, so and I expect there's going to be pressure on them to knock it out of the park, and I'm sure that they will put on a hell of a show. But anyway, Dynamite kicks off, and it kicks off with the Jericho Appreciation Society mandatory meeting. Now, I wasn't quite sure. Jericho looked a little bit weird in his attire. And I know we've spoken about his sparkly shoes in the past, and wasn't very keen on what he was wearing, but I'm not exactly a fashion icon, so I can't really, criticize too much. Anyway, long story short, all the Jericho members had their reasons, and all the Jericho Appreciation Society basically was out. They were saying things like, we were fighting your battles, not ours. We were turning on our friends. Anna Jay was saying, look, I've got a title match. It's going to be the selfish one. I need to go and do. Ty Guevara basically said, look, I'm having this baby. I'm coming back and I'm winning gold. The only one, Matt Menard, was a little bit like, I idolized you growing up. But, you made me turn on my friends like Kingston and people like that. The only one that kind of left it open was Guevara.
Yeah.
Kind of like I said, sort your stuff out, and I might be here when you're back. After that, he met Don Callis, and there was Jericho basically said, next week I'll give you your answer. I've got another theory now. And I know I had a theory before, which was they were going to attack Jericho, and they didn't. My theory now is Don Callis is not necessarily masterminded it, but wanted those guys to leave Jericho, because next week, even if Jericho decides he's going to join the family, he's going to get beat down by Takeshita and maybe Ospreay, or he's going to get beat down. That's my view now. But anyway, opening segment, strong, to the point, and it kind of built along nicely to next week.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. I think we're going to see a face version Chris Jericho without his henchmen, without the JAS.
Yeah.
And we're going to see him in a position, from what we hear, that it will lead to a match against Will Ospreay All In. Now, I wasn't overly keen on that, and probably because I wanted Kenny Omega against Ospreay. That's the match that I really wanted to see. A face Jericho, I mean, still, if that's what we get, that's what we get. It's not the match I'd book. But I'm sure that's a capable enough match to, you know, Will Ospreay is so talented, so good. So it actually becomes like an interesting dynamic to see what they can do with that. It could totally flop. But I think you're right. I don't think he ends up with Callis, and I think he's he hasn't really given an answer to the JAS, as he hasn't really been clear.
No.
But they've made the decision for him and left them. And what I would say for them, they're in a group called the Jericho Appreciation Society, so they've got to kind of take it on a bit of responsibility themselves. If everything's been focused around Jericho, well, yeah, that's the name of the group. But yeah, Sammy was the interesting one, saying I've been here from the start with you. And then the mention of Kingston by Menard, that was a bit of a that was a bit of a deep one.
Mention Kevin Owens by Kevin Steen.
Same point. No wonder they hate you, words, words to that effect. So I quite like this opening segment. It's dragged on a little bit, and I think we could have probably got to the destination a bit quicker, but Ospreay's here at the minute. So if the plan was to incorporate Will into this, which is, pardon?
He's doing the G1, isn't he? He's still there.
Is he in Japan?
He's still, I think he's in the semi-finals of the G1.
Okay. Well, he's in Japan, and then he's going to be here, isn't he? So in between, obviously, they've got to plan in for if he's going to appear on Dynamite.
Yeah.
So it's probably that partly plays into it, perhaps, if that is the way they go. If not, and it's a one-on-one match with Takeshita, Kenny Omega's been rumoured for the match against Takeshita as well at All In.
They've changed that though, haven't they? They've said that now it's potentially going to be the Golden Lovers and Hangman versus and a couple of others, which we'll get onto. It's all up in the air. I mean, it should be clarified next week. We should get the outcome and the actual kind of what we're looking at in terms of the alliances and the matchup. But I didn't mind this. It quite, all of these younger talents get to speak on the microphone and have their moment. I've been saying about Jericho hogging the spotlight. He didn't really do that here. It was on to the other members to kind of say their piece, and I think they all spoke pretty well, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, even like some of the women, we say they're weaker on the mic sometimes, but they got their point across really well. They delivered it in a way. I mean, obviously, Ty Guevara can't really do anything because obviously the pregnancy. So I think that's exit now sealed. From until next year when she can come back. Obviously, Anna Jay had her title match, which we'll get to in a minute. I thought it was a good opening. It got to the point. It leaves it for next week now. So again, it leads nicely, and we need to find out what happens next week. Maybe the thing doesn't happen next week when they turn on Jericho. Maybe it's a week later because obviously Ospreay, not sure when the G1 finishes, but Kingston's still out there as well. He's still wrestling out in the G1 at the minute. So maybe a week or two's time, but we'll get there. We'll get to the...
It's not the thing I'm interested in most in terms of what's happening in AEW, but I am intrigued to see what direction they go with this.
Yes.
And, whether anybody says about if Jericho is age now or whatever, he's a huge he's a legend in the sport. He absolutely is. He's a guaranteed Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And there'll be a lot of Jericho fans at Wembley, from his career. So seeing him coming out, everybody singing Judas and getting behind him, You know, that could actually be something quite special in itself. So again, not perhaps the way I'd have gone. And I would have really, really liked to have seen Kenny versus Will, the third match. And I'm sure that will happen at some point. I was hoping it would happen at Wembley. But we'll see. We'll see. And you know, let's not judge it until we know what we've got and we can discuss it, and then we can see what comes out of All In.
Maybe All Out for Omega Ospreay.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe. The first match on the show was a tag team. It was the Young Bucks against the Hardys. I think the important thing, and because obviously on paper you say those names and you're like, brilliant. We got to remember that these guys are in their 40s.
Yeah,
they're not at their peak of their careers anymore. So it's very much to remember that. Listen, the Young Bucks getting the win. It was the Hardys' best match in a while, in my opinion. Of course, it's not going to reach the standards that it may have done in ROH or in TNA, but
yeah, it was 9 years ago, wasn't it, in ROH?
Exactly, and they were 30s then. You know, they're now in the 40s. It's not going to be that. You know, they've got to tone down some of their moves. I was talking just a minute before we come on air with Kelly from Rev Pro, and she was saying that, you know, people like Ospreay, and there was another one, Alex Windsor, the women's champion. Due to injuries, she's had to tone down some of the move sets. Some of the moves, she's retired some of her moves because she just can't do them. And I think it's very important to remember that these guys have battered their bodies to pieces over the last 20 odd years for us. So although the match didn't live up to those sort of high expectations, they still delivered a really fun opening contest.
Yeah, I thought so. And you're getting Young Bucks against the Hardys on free TV. And the match was absolutely fine. You got a lot of the normal Young Bucks spots. They're still as good as ever. Then the Hardys have slowed down, but it was still a competitive match. I think the Hardys are on the way out. You know, this is perhaps their last run. And I don't begrudge them that run. I do kind of want a lot of the homegrown and the AEW younger stars to kind of force their space on the show week in, week out and see more of them. But this is a bit of a transition period, you know. The likes of Sting, the likes of Jericho, the likes of the Hardys. You know, they've meant so much to all of us growing up as wrestling fans. So let's not totally kind of disregard them. Let's, you know, they've got an opportunity to go out their way, and Tony Khan's allowing them to do that, which I think is what they deserve after all the years they've put in, after all the bumps they've taken, after all the entertainment they've provided for us. You know, some wrestlers perhaps overstay their welcome and perhaps they should retire sooner. But when they're involved with a company like AEW, you know, a relatively new company still at 4 years old, putting on these Wembley shows, doing all of these exciting things, if you were in their position, would you want to totally walk away from that? So I'm trying to be a little bit more understanding. And in terms of this tag match, great. I thought nothing wrong with it. The right winners. Yeah. Obviously, that leads us on to the match we're going to get it all in. So the Young Bucks get the momentum from picking up the win. Absolutely no problem with the booking of this. No
problem at all with it. I think it was, you know, if anything, it was, you kind of had to get the Young Bucks over because, as you say, they called out FTR. They confirmed the match for All In. So we're going to get FTR Young Bucks free. The rubber match, I can't wait for that match. Personally, I think that's going to be up there with probably one of the best matches on the card. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be great. We had another MJF Adam Cole segment, trampoline park, baby. They have dodgeball. MJF destroys the kids. There's just so much fun going on there.
I thought this was really funny and entertaining. So I was watching it thinking this is going to get shit on. Oh, sorry, swear jar. Yeah, there's some kind of corners of the wrestling, particularly the internet wrestling community, aren't going to like this. But I thought it was pretty funny, you know, and it was only a few minutes long. It didn't detract from the show. It was something a little bit different. So I enjoyed this. I don't know if you felt the same.
When he drilled the girl in the back of the head.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I always say these kind of things. I enjoy it on both shows because they both get crapped on, you know.
Yeah.
WWE do something, and generally, and this isn't a hit, generally when the WWE do something like that, the tribalism sinks in. AEW fans on it, and vice versa. WWE fans would crap on something like this. I found it hilarious. I've loved what they've done. These two as to get these two as over as a tag team. We know a switch is coming. We think we know where it's going, but it's still been hilarious. And those sort of skits, as you say, it wasn't too long. It dragged. You know, talking about WWE, they would kind of drag that out over segments. I would find. So that's the one thing I did like. It was a brief 2-3 minute, hilariously funny segment. And then it got back to the serious stuff, and the serious stuff being the FTW World Championship, which was Jack Perry versus Rob Van Dam. This guy, Van Dam, it was like watching him when he was in his 20s.
I'm glad you said that, because I thought the same. I thought this. I saw Van Dam in TNA Impact, and I don't think he was this, he probably was, it's probably recency bias, but I thought he looked as good in that match against Jack Perry as he has for years. I'm talking about going back to his early WWE days. He looked great. The majority of it, that leg drop off the side of the ring, that spinning leg drop, that was just awesome. And again, I don't think Rob Van Dam's going to be kind of there long term. I think he's just come in for this kind of story, and I think he did a great job. I thought it was another great match. RVD against Jungle Boy on Dynamite, free TV. The entertainment we got, the way it finished, the way that plays into the overall story. Yeah. Again, no complaints. I'm kind of sound like a bit of a broken record, but I'm waiting for something to kind of criticize or to say, okay, this wasn't great, but I thought this absolutely served its purpose beautifully.
Oh man, Van Dam hasn't lost a step. That guy, it must be all that stuff that he obviously keeps himself in good shape. I mean, there was people online saying, "Oh, his belly's big," and I was like, "Really? Like that? Well, he's 50 odd years old for a start." So, listen, we all get that kind of that. I mean, I've got that physique now, but at 39, but he could still look if he'd come out today that AEW had signed him properly.
Yeah.
I mean, he might not want to do. I mean, well, the schedule isn't too bad at the minute, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I would be ecstatic if he could still go with the best of them.
Yeah.
And that match has proved it. Look, Jungle Boy gets to win hand for the tights. There was shenanigans pretty much with in line with heel Jungle Boy. You're probably right that Hook will eventually return and they'll kickstart. But listen, if Tony or anyone in A, just sign Van Dam.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a misstep at all. That would be. He kind of showed that he's still got a lot left in the tank, and he's got a role to play in stories. And if he's there to help younger guys out and put them over and help build the stars of the next 10 years, then that is the perfect use of him.
Exactly.
Yeah. My dad has he's got back into AEW. He's coming to Wembley with me.
Brilliant.
And he was a bit unsure when he saw Rob Van Dam, because he's like, these young guys in AEW, they don't need the older guys so much, and he was a bit unsure. So I'll catch up with him, and it would be interesting to find out his thoughts on this. But I thought this match was absolutely great. A solid 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 type TV match. Yeah. You're not going to get the pay-per-view style match on Dynamite. That's not the purpose of it. It's not very often you do. Occasionally they'll build to a big main event that could be on a pay-per-view. This wasn't that. This was kind of 12-15 minute match that kind of put Jack Perry over and showed that Van Dam has definitely still got it, as the audience chanted. There
was no doubt that guy still got it. It's unbelievable. We then had another Better Than You Baby. This time they're in the arena. Now, this is what we got to earlier on. Now, the zinger of the week. I said this in our group. There was a bit of shenanigans on the mic with these two. And then MJF basically says that Adam Cole is so pow and so pow white that if it was the 80s, Hogan would have snorted him. That is, fantastic. Anyway, they got back on the same page, and as you mentioned, they challenged Aussie Open to a match for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions at 0 Hour, which is the before All In.
Yeah.
They did mention teams like Red Dragon, Kings of Wrestling, Bisco Brothers. MJF basically said, I normally threaten to stab someone who tries to force him into wrestling more than once, but he's a sucker for a cheap pop. So they challenged him. Roddy Strong comes out. Can't believe that Adam Cole shows MJF. MJF tells Roddy Strong to shake it off, you blind. I think it was a B. And they said about the Kingdom being right.
Bland B, yeah.
Yes, the B. Anyway, and then Cole loses his cool, shoves MJF for what Roderick Strong. Cole apologizes and they hug it out. But it looks like the Kingdom. So this could be where the Kingdom get involved at 0 Hour in this, because obviously I think the Kingdom and Roderick Strong are maybe coming together as well. But yeah, it was listen. The segment was great. Gave us another match to look forward to, and these two just keep hitting it out of the park.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think that the longer this goes on, the better it keeps getting. That perhaps we don't get the swerve at All In, that we get a clean match, and they shake hands at the end, and that's it. And this continues. That will change at some point. But I don't know whether it's necessarily going to change now in a few weeks' time at Wembley. You know, it's interesting because this is so good. So, I mean, the line when he said about loving the Midwest and my God, strike me down, and then he was waiting to be struck down, and Adam Cole's reaction as well. I thought that popped me. I was laughing at that as well. So I kind of don't want this to end. I hope it carries on longer term than a few more weeks, but we'll see. But all the different elements, the involvement of Roderick Strong, now we've got the Kingdom coming into this, you know, a great team as well, done really well in Ring of Honor, really underrated. Mike Bennett didn't do a great deal in WWE, did they? But in Ring of Honor, he's a kind of a bit of a legend there, and to bring these tech guys in and involve them with this as well, it just keeps, I don't know, it just keeps adding layers, and it keeps incorporating different wrestlers, and everybody's getting over with it. And the fans care about each element. They care about Roderick Strong's reaction, whether they're kind of like mocking him with MJF or whether there's a portion that are kind of feeling sorry for him. There's investment there. So again, this is just phenomenal storytelling at the minute.
It is, and we'll find out. As you say, we may not find out All In. Maybe All Out, maybe later. They may extend it. Listen, it's been done before in wrestling. Storylines have happened and they've had to extend because of... Well,
it'd be interesting to see if they win the titles. I mean, if they win the titles, the Ring of Honor titles, I will not have a clue which way they're going to go in the main event then. You know, if they're the current ROH champs, which would be a bit harsh on Aussie Open, but because they're only just won the titles, but they're going to have a lot of titles, not just Ring of Honor, AEW tag titles. So I don't think they would be long-term damaged if Cole and MJF take the belts.
No.
But obviously they didn't win the AEW titles against FTR. So there's a part of me thinking they're going to win those tag belts. And then I'll just, as I say, we go into the main event and I'll just be kind of like, I won't know what to expect. I'll expect a great match, but in terms of what happens at the end of that or following that, I won't have a clue.
No, and that's what's the good thing. It keeps that mind going. So we keep second guessing, which is good. The next part was the Blackpool Combat Club, more notably Claudio Castagnoli and Moxley against Lucha Brothers. Really good. I mean, you know, literally the video game says fight forever. And these two teams can absolutely fight forever. They've been having these freeways with best friends. Obviously, last week on Rampage, there was an awesome parking lot brawl, which the Combat Club managed to get the victory in that and beat the best friends. They got the victory here. They did rip off Penta's mask in the protest. Yuta did get involved as well, as did Alex Abrahantes. But these guys, you could just every week, couldn't you?
Yeah, some great spots in this match again. I don't like it when they take the masks off, because that's kind of disrespectful thing. But it makes you, it absolutely serves the purpose, doesn't it? You know, it gives so much heat to the heels
Yeah.
It is really effective. Again, this wasn't a pay-per-view standard match, but it's not meant to be. It's a bit of a teaser. It's a bit of a, this is what they're capable of. And as you say, the cheap finish to a degree, ripping Penta's mask off. But if that leads to another matchup or, a bit of a feud between Death Triangle, which Pac will be back at some point. Hopefully, I know he's going to be out for a while. But, playing off the story with Death Triangle and the BCC, again, if and when they announce a match for All In or All Out, and it involves any combination of those guys, I'll be happy again.
Interestingly, because they haven't really, the BCC don't have a match yet.
Not yet.
Thinking, does Kingston return and challenge Claudio again for the Ring of Honor? And does he
thinking
get his moment?
Yeah, I'm thinking, does Kingston challenge Mox?
Oof.
Yeah,
death match or something.
Yeah. They've obviously had a match
bleed,
before.
Mox is going to
both will, yeah. But they've had that match before in AEW, haven't they? And then they've been, but there was words with them, and there was, they hinted at a kind of not so much a split, but dissension between the two. So if we end up getting Moxley against Kingston, again, take my money. They've already took it, but it's another pay-per-view quality match, and to see Eddie Kingston on that big stage in front of 85,000 fans, that's just incredible. From where it was to where he's come now, and picking up the title in New Japan and being in the G1. Man, who would begrudge Eddie Kingston a match like that at All In?
I want Eddie Kingston to win a title at All In, because that cry, he will cry, because that's the passion, and that's why I love Kingston so much, because he's heart on his sleeve. He just gives everything. Listen, he knows he doesn't look, he hasn't got the look. We all, he's been fat shamed before, and I hate that people say. But I just want him to have a title in AEW, because I know it will mean so much to him. If you listen to the background, he was living in his car, and when he got the AEW contract and he cried and all this sort of stuff, you need to understand the backstory of Kingston. To really respect that guy. I listen, I respect any wrestler that jumps in that ring and does what they do, because it's ridiculous. But Eddie Kingston, for me, I just so want him to win a title over here. Because it will be amazing for him. That reaction for him. Yes, he'll probably tear up. But anyway, we move on. Hopefully Eddie Kingston gets his match. We mentioned it earlier, Omega. He's having a sit down with JR next week to discuss his future.
And his match at All In,
And was Wembley. He didn't specify a match, but they said at All In. So basically, he'll be specifying. Again, it gives you a reason next week to tune in just for that, because you're going to want to know what Omega wants All In, right? Wouldn't it be weird? And it isn't going to happen, because we know he's got a match. If someone, because I was listening to Dax earlier on, they had an interview, and they basically they kind of hinted that the match that we all really want to see, he thinks we will see in the future, which is the six-man. And I'm not saying Omega's going to challenge it now, but he could do an all-out challenge or something like that. But
I think we're going to get it. I think they were quite clever in getting the Joe and Punk match set up just to take away that speculation as to it happening at All In. But I think relationships have obviously improved. And you know what? The Elite will be absolutely ecstatic. The Collision's doing so well. And a big reason why Collision's doing so well is because of CM Punk. So, as businessmen, as VPs, as professionals, they might not like him personally. And there's obviously been stuff that happened. But I think they can all move on from it, and they can make a lot of money and provide us with a lot of entertainment.
Yeah, just don't mention the Collision rating this week, because obviously with SmackDown and with SummerSlam,
it's up against SummerSlam.
It took a hit. Look, it was going to, and I think that's why they tried to put on that, the real world championship match and everything they did. This week's Collision, just a quick side note as we're talking AEW, House of Black, CMFTR.
Yeah,
that doesn't get your juices going. You're not a wrestling fan.
Exactly.
Anyway, we sidetracked on. After Omega, we had Swerve Strickland and AR Fox come out with the Mobile Embassy. They were talking about Darby Allin and and Nick Wayne, and this Darby's got no friends, and Darby says, well, actually, I do have a friend.
Yeah.
And friend happened to be Sting, and Sting come out, the lights went off. Tony Schiavone reached that point that he reaches generally when Sting comes out. Sting comes out, points the arrow to All In. It's now set. AR Fox, Swerve Strickland, Sting, Darby Allin in a tag team coffin match at Wembley. Looking forward to it. So obviously seeing Sting probably for the last, I would imagine it will be our last time that we see Sting competing in a wrestling ring live in the UK, unless he does a retirement tour of sorts. But I'm just excited to see Sting.
Oh, same. Sting is probably my favourite of all time. So, yeah, to have the opportunity to see him at Wembley Stadium in 2023 is just so cool. So, yes, I understand. Yeah, we've talked about him at times. Does he really need to be doing that dive off the ladder and stuff? But, man, he's having the time of his life, and he's finishing his career in style, his way. The only way that would have made this segment better for me is if Nick Wayne was in the ring with Sting as well, maybe even with the face paint and a bat. But obviously he's selling the attack from last week, and that's probably
I think that's best.
Yeah, it was brutal. Don't get me wrong. So that was, I can't criticize them. I would have liked, though, because there was a lot of guys in the embassy.
Yeah.
There's like 4 or 5 guys, and it was just small. Sting. No, Sting, yes, he's got his bat, but it was just Sting. So, yeah, I would probably, minor criticism. I liked Nick Wayne to be involved with it as well. But, mate, this has set up another phenomenal match. A gimmick match. They're not all going to be gimmick matches, but we want a few. We want a few at All In.
Definitely.
And a double coffee match. I don't recall ever seeing one.
Does Nick Wayne turn on Darby?
Maybe he joins the embassy. Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe he aligns himself with Swerve, which would be absolutely shocking after what happened last week. But anything can happen in wrestling. But I'm sure that this storyline is going to go for a while, and we haven't even scratched the surface with it. Some of the matches that we're going to see there, the Gates of Agony are phenomenal in their own right. You got Brian Cage, you've got Big Bill as well, kind of floating in the background. He's affiliated with Brian Cage. You got Swerve, AR Fox. AR Fox has been a sensation since he came into AEW.
Oh, he's been brilliant.
And now he's got a storyline, and we know a bit more about his character, and he showed this side to him. I think it just makes him even more interesting, and it makes it more the whole angle more entertaining. So again, this match makes a lot of sense to me. They Swerve got this lifelong problem with Darby Allin, which started way before AEW. Then you've got the turn of AR Fox. Those two go up against Darby. Who else is Darby going to be tagging with after the last few years? It's going to be Sting, and we'd be really, really harsh to criticize that.
No criticism from me. I want to see Sting at least one more time.
Yeah,
hear that music one more time. I need to hear him howl. Well, I'm not going to do it because with my chest infection, there's no way am I going to be.
It might finish you off.
I think, I can't even woo, let alone howl. But I can't even talk most times. So apologies.
You're doing a great job, mate.
If you see me mute my mic during this, it is because I'm suffering from quite a serious infection, so I'm trying to get over it. And so if I do cough, sometimes Dave may even get tagged in, or Andy now he's back off his Spanish holiday, mate.
Oh, is he going to do some work? Is he?
Apparently so. Yeah, she's. And he might be joining you on. No, he's not joining you on Collision this week. No, he's not.
We got Parker back this Sunday, all being well.
Good. Get you guys doing some
back at full force.
Back in full force, teams back together. I'm on holiday actually next week, but I'm still going to be doing this. See, I don't know. Holiday's getting away with this. To be fair, I'm only in England still. I'm only going to be in Cornwall. Anyway, we could talk.
Brian Danielson would call him an amateur.
Exactly that, and I had it on good authority that Andy didn't expense the holiday on the Turnbuckle account, as you mentioned during the Impact review.
I hope he was wearing his hitting the Turnbuckle gear over there and spreading the word.
You know why? I think we need to get tattoos done. Turnbuckle tattoos. Oh God, don't even go there. Anyway, let's digress and move swiftly on to. There was only 4 matches on the card this week. Hikaru Shida versus Anna Jay now. It's not JAS anymore because she's left. This is the only.
Yeah.
And the only thing.
I'm prepared for this.
The finish was awful.
Yeah.
It looked like they were trying to. It looks like she did come out with. Wasn't Daddy? It was Angelo, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were both at ringside. It was Angelo at the end.
Yeah. The finish. So Shida hit the kick. Very weak looking kick.
Mm-hmm.
Looked like Angelo was meant to have either pulled the ref or pulled Shida out, and didn't do it enough, and the ref counted to 3. So it was a sloppy ending. Apart from that, look, the match was fine. I think what this match really showed was Shida hadn't wrestled in a while. Anna Jay hadn't really wrestled in a while as such. I know she's had a couple of matches here and there. And I think that played its part. They're not really, Shida's only just come back from whatever's happened. I don't know if she was injured or visa or whatever. So I think that played a big part in this feeling a bit sloppy.
Yeah, they didn't have great chemistry together, which was surprising because they've had matches in the past. But I think they tried to overcomplicate it with the outside interference. I don't think it was really necessary. I think if they would have avoided that and they would have just had a regular match with maybe a few more near falls, it would have been more effective. So something went awry at the end. So we can't avoid that. And we can't pretend it didn't happen. In terms of the women being in the main event again, great. It's the women's world title, and the women's world title should be defended in the main event. Now, if they keep getting put in the position and it affects, if there's a drop off in ratings or if there's a lot of criticism, and such as the way the match ended, then fair enough, maybe things can be moved around again. Yeah. But I'm just glad they're getting the opportunity to go out there in the main event of Dynamite, and I think it's just they've got to do their bit to stay there. And it's not just a case of, because you're females, and there's been some criticism lately and the guy with the sign, you automatically get the main event. But I think some of the work that Shida's done and Anna Jay, has justified it, and they haven't had those opportunities in the past. So I'm glad they're getting them. And, all being well, next time they get in the ring together, they'll have a great match. But it'd be interesting to find out if it does come out what the actual plan was for the end. But again, they probably should have overcomplicated it, but you can blame the producers for that rather than the talent. The talent were trying to implement the finish that had been laid out to them, and it didn't go 100% to plan, which happens at times. It's unfortunate. And with it being in the main event as well, after the, so much has been highlighted about, the women and being in the main event, it's just an unfortunate one. If this match was Willow and Athena, the one that we keep talking about from Ring of Honor, then it would have been a very different reaction. So a bit lackluster. I understand the criticism of the main event, but I also applaud AEW for the booking.
Yeah, exactly that. Listen, I'm going to put it down to ring rust. I still think they hadn't done a lot.
Yeah,
it does. And you're right. Sometimes overcomplicating things happen. So the part about this match, and again, this was a confusing part to me. Nothing to do with the match. This was So they announced that there is going to be a fatal 4-way match, all in for the women's world title. Toni Storm got a bye.
Yeah.
Shida had to qualify. That was a qualifier.
It was a qualifier, but it was a women's title match as well. So, they've kind of tried to double it up and have it a tournament match.
Yeah.
It does sound a little bit clunky now you say it, really. It might have been better for Shida to have the bye and Toni Storm to go up against Anna Jay.
Yeah.
But I think Toni Storm's got a bit of an injury, so maybe that affected it as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently so. But I hadn't thought about that. But that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is what it is. I mean, look, they're going to the fatal 4-way. It's nearly been set. I mean, Britt Baker's got her match, I think, next week on Dynamite. Saraya's had hers, and I'm not going to spoil it, but she's had her match on Rampage to qualify for the women. So see if she gets in at Wembley. Look, it doesn't take a genius to work out.
Yeah, we know what the match is going to be. Perhaps they shouldn't have done it as a tournament. They should have just said these are the matches. She's defending a title. If she wins, she'll be in the fatal 4-way as the champion, rather than have the tournament brackets.
Yeah. And you kind of know when you saw who was there. You knew. you just knew, and it's not a logical thing. Look, so, I'm going to spoil it. Saraya does win her match.
Yeah, of course.
She's there, and Britt Baker's next week, and we're assuming it would make logical sense for Britt.
I can't. Do you know who Britt's up against? I can't.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Yeah, when I looked at it, I thought Britt Baker's definitely the fourth person in this, and then we've obviously got the Statlander match as well, the TBS title. So
yes.
A couple of great championship matches to look forward to. Whether they go with Taya Valkyrie for that, or whether we see the return of Jade. We were speculating over Jade the other week and what her future holds. She's a big star for AEW, and her entrance at Wembley would be phenomenal. And if she'd come back for kind of retribution on Chris Statlander, I think that would be another big moment.
It would be. It's the Bunny, by the way.
The Bunny, yeah. So
returning Bunny.
Returning Bunny is going to be beaten by Britt, I would imagine.
I think that's a safe bet.
But then, we got Thunder Rosa as well. How far is she off her return?
She's not far. She done a thing today, I think, with Dr. Sampson, basically saying she's going to have a couple of training sessions where she's going to take some bumps, and then she'll be a step closer. So I think that may happen at the end of all that match, that she may come out.
Yeah.
You could imagine even Britt Baker winning it.
Well, yeah, Thunder Rosa obviously appeared on Collision, which you would think they were doing that, and she can't be far away. So that is a big money match as well, isn't it? The rematch, Britt and Thunder.
Britt wins the 4-way, Thunder comes out.
Yeah.
All out.
Yeah. In some kind of what did they have?
Lights out match.
Lights out match.
They've had quite a few brutal matches then.
Yeah.
I think we got to tread carefully, especially when you come back from injuries. Rosa's obviously was a serious one. We're gonna have to be. They have to be very careful. I don't like when they get thrown into like a gimmick match as soon as they come back. I mean, WWE made that mistake with Jeff Hardy enough times. Brought him back, and he was straight in a ladder match, and he was doing all the weird crap off ladders and bits and pieces. So, not a fan of that. But yeah.
Well, they've got another big show coming up at Arthur Ashe, 20,000 capacity.
Yes.
That's a big show for AEW as well. So they've got another big card really to kind of look forward to. And 2 seconds, Ad. 2 seconds.
Yeah. So they do have a big card to look forward to. Arthur Ashe in New York. In a couple of months, I believe. They've got another card, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays into it. But Arthur Ashe, Dave.
Sorry about that, mate.
That's right.
Arthur Ashe. Another big show for AEW, another card that they've got to put together. So it's just an exciting time for AEW fans, exciting time for wrestling fans, and I just think everything that we're getting at the minute is great. And we're not getting all the answers, but we're getting a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and we'll see how they fall.
Exactly. Finally, your the value of Dynamite this week. I don't think it quite matched Raw, if I'm being totally honest. I think
I'm a 7 out of 10 for this.
Yes.
Again, it didn't kind of pull up any trees. There wasn't a great deal of, as you say, 4 matches, but there's quite a lot of storyline development, and everything that I saw entertained me. Give the women cut them a little bit of slack in the main event, because, as I say, it was a finish that obviously went to Roy, which didn't necessarily. I mean, I'm not blaming Angelo Parker, but something went wrong.
Yeah.
But overall, the show was great.
Yeah, I gave it 7.25.
Nice.
So we're on the same wavelength. But another solid AEW. We're building towards All In. I think we got a top 10 coming. I can't remember. I know Andy's going to be doing a SmackDown review with me late tomorrow. So we're going to be recording it late Saturday night. So I'll have Andy for company as well. Saturday. The tanned Andy, I suppose. We've got Redlock Lex Dave, tanned Andy, Bald Adam, and Parker. We don't know.
Let's see what Parker turns up with on Sunday.
Parker turns up with.
We haven't seen him for a while.
Yeah, I'm going to miss the Collision review. Unfortunately, I'm at a Jurassic Pro Wrestling show, one of our wrestling organizations that we sponsor over here in the UK. I'm going to watch their Summer Stampede show, which is going to be blowing off some of the feuds and also seeing one of our wrestlers that we sponsor, the great Corey McRae, will be there. So I'm looking forward to that. But guys, listen, this has been the AEW Dynamite review. He's Dreadlockless Dave. I'm your host, Adam Cousins. I haven't got nothing to really add to that. Chesty Adam. Oh no, that's really bad. I can't really say that. that would be really bad.
That sounds right out of the Attitude Era. That does.
Yeah, that could well be. Anyway, he's Dreadlockless Dave. I've been your host, Adam Cousins. Until next time, everybody.
It's time to bid you adieu, goodbye, mwah, and good night. Bang.
And stay safe.